Alright. So, I'm not going to be starting at 13, because I actually just unlocked 13, and I am pushing forward with my friends. So we're going to be doing 12, which, for my gear, is pretty much going to be where I'm at. I wanted to make a video showing that blighted rounds is not the only option for Techno. And I'm mostly going to be doing that because while I came to the blighted rounds on my own and then found out online that everyone was using them, I built incorrectly. I assumed because they were an ability that they used ability power or anomaly power. They do not really. Stasis, sure, to some degree, but not anomaly. Which left me with a bunch of anomaly gear and not very great damage. So I looked around for a while and I finally settled on a really fun minigun build that I will show you works just fine and some tricks to how to do it. And then at the end, go through what my gear looks like. I am just leveling up. I haven't reached 15 yet, but I have no reason to believe this will not work great at 15. As I'm sure many of you have noticed, positioning is pretty key these days, and that's going to be more important for the minigun build because you cannot move very well with the minigun. So knowing the map, knowing where to go, will make up for this, what I consider to be the softest spot. The biggest weakness of the minigun is that you cannot bloody move. But once in position, things go pretty smoothly. One of the biggest flaws that I had, unless of course they're not going to spawn because I went too far. Oh, there they are. One of the biggest issues I had with blight rounds was that you could be taken out by a pack like this and stun locked to death. Of course that, like everything else, can be figured out a little bit just by learning positioning and stuff like that. But I usually roll in a group of 3, which those of you that roll in groups know can be quite hectic, and it led to a lot of downtime. One of the beautiful things of the minigun is that you cannot really be stun locked like everyone else can. Not sure why that was a thing they decided to allow us to be. I feel like we should have the same CC bar that the mini bosses have. But as you can see, I can just stand here and enjoy myself and use cooldowns. And I used much of the same principle for making sure that I always have bullets as the Blighted Rounds build uses. I'm using my Blighted Turret and my melee attack to apply Toxic. And then I also have Perpetual Motion. That's not the right name of it. I'll look at it later. The Perpetual Mobile, I think, on my primary gun, which for whatever reason actually works for the minigun. It's the only mod I'm aware of that does that. You will learn as you go through maps, places you can drop the minigun and run, places that reset the minigun, and that'll help you move faster. I was thinking that you could probably make a light version of this for leveling, which would work quite well. Like the blighted rounds, you need to pay attention to your bullets and make sure that you either going to finish off the monster and get your clip reset, or that you switch to little targets and reset your clip. Okay, so that resets the area. If you look at the top left, the blue marker is up. Drop your minigun by switching weapons. Sprint for it. This is a trick that works for blighted rounds. If you hadn't noticed, if you are the one, not anyone, you are the one to activate the button, door, whatever it is to the next area, your cooldowns will be reset. I use this a lot to allow myself to move between areas and get my minigun up and running again for monsters. When you do not have a minigun, be forewarned. You will be soft. You will go down. Also, as a high anomaly damage build, you can in fact melee for a lot. And when you are surrounded, you should be meleeing quite a bit. I've been playing around with the pain launcher. I have a slot for basically one mod for it. Look at that floating turret. Trying to figure out if I like the frost aspect or the extra damage aspect or the range aspect. I think it might actually depend kind of what map you're going to, I guess. But so far I've leaned towards the frost a little bit more because I have a mod on my armor that helps me do more damage to frost. One of the problems with the big problem with the minigun is that you turn very, 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 very slow while zoomed in. And you always move, but I have noticed if you zoom out, real quick, you can pivot very quickly between in and outs. Obviously, you want to be zoomed in because it keeps your bullets in a tighter cluster, although that doesn't always matter if you're surrounded. One of the benefits to the melee as well is that it will mostly, if not full, heal you. First, I wasn't 100% sold on even using melee, to be honest. I didn't realize the benefits it could give. But with the Technomancer especially, the AoE nature of it, and the fact that you can spec it to add toxin, makes it quite lovely. One of the things you've probably noticed at this point... Oh, roof turret. Is that you can't hit weak spots with this. There's no critting, which is terribly frustrating a lot of the time. There are aspects of it that I don't quite understand, like you cannot gain benefits from the close/long range armor attributes, although you're clearly using a giant weapon. So, you know, choices, I guess. Now, I alternate back and forth between using Pain Launcher and Shrapnel. You need to have your Blight thing. It just works too well. It has such a short cooldown. And it puts Toxin on targets, which is really, really good for keeping the old clip full. But the third slot there, you can have fun with. So here, with the Pain Launcher up close and something like this actually does a hilarious amount of damage. Look at that. Dropped it down like it didn't exist. But Shrapnel is also quite fun. Especially if you know you're going up against a lot of dogs and stuff, because it's got a much quicker cooldown. It also provides a little more directed area control, especially if you have multiple charges going on. Cold Snap is one that I used to rely on quite a lot for for staying alive. Like Cold Snap is very good for that. However, once you start using the minigun, you're gonna realize that you don't have issues with that sort of thing. You don't have to level your weapon up. You just need to make sure you have decent mods on your weapon. And you don't have to do anything really other than level your armor up to make sure your Anomaly Power is boosted, because you're going to scale directly off of Anomaly Power. Oh, cool. Frozen? Cast it. This is actually... Oh. Little ammo refill there. Another thing I find quite pleasing, well, I'm not positive, I am mostly positive, are melee interrupts. And turret does okay damage. It's not the best, the Blight turret. It's mostly about getting things out from behind cover, doing damage yourself, prepping up those clip refills. It's all about the clip refills. At longer range, you'll want to do burst fire. It's a lot like the LMG. Short bursts will keep your accuracy in. As you can see, the reticle there. When you're zoomed in, it'll narrow it out, but as you get firing, it'll spread out again. Most of the time, it's not really a big issue because, you know, look at this. It's right in your face. Who cares? You really dodge out of that? Good for him. Alright. We're not going to see it because apparently none of those bosses had it. But there's only one thing that's really ever going to kill you unless you run out of ammo. Which, you know, happens. And that's going to be those laser bubble turret things. The spell. Ooh, that one got me kind of close. Those things are unfortunately really hard to get out of. The pod is ours. But I'll show you my gear in a second here. Here's the biggest problem. I can get gold on this, not always. Really depends on really that first stage is placement. You're slow. You can't get around being slow. When you're in a group, it's a lot easier because you can have downtime running and cooldown time. But you will pretty much always succeed in clearing these. I count on one hand the number of times they successfully killed me. It's very, very easy to live forever. Looks like no joy today. By the way, because they never tell you, if anyone has never figured this out, down on the D-pad for controllers or H on the keyboard will automatically pick up all loot on the map that you are currently on. But, as you can see, Cold Push is my melee. It actually does comparable damage to Blighted Turret. Blighted Turret was always out. Cold Push I was just doing as, things were there so I could mark them. Pain Launcher does good. Toxic does alright. Minigun does all the damage. As for gear, the primary one is going to be Perpetuum Mobile. If you can get Fortress, it comes off of a legendary shotgun. That adds quite a bit as well, especially because it bases off of armor, which you will have a lot of. So you should have Fortify. Always have Fortify. It's basically what lets you sit in the middle of his unlimited enemies and just go to town. But you'll basically want stuff like Resistance Piercing because it is in fact an Anomaly Power. It will push through and that will help you make sure that Toxic and Freeze get on your targets. I have Radical Therapy. It's helpful. I don't know if it's strictly necessary, but I do cover things in Toxic, so it probably is a good help. I swap Freeze Barrage with whatever I'm using, either Shrapnel upgrades or different Pain Launcher stuff. I have Freezing Boost as what came with this. It is not really necessary. Depends on your build. I don't have really great gear. I am just using what I have found so far, and it works fantastic. Massacre. I don't know that it is strictly great anymore. I think the nerf to 3 seconds was too much. It should probably be closer to about 6 to 8. Somewhere along the lines of what it takes to kill an alpha, I guess. Somewhere in that range is probably how long it should last. I agree that it was stacking far too much before, but I think they went overboard. The 100% base ammo. I am coming to the opinion that once I have the exact gear that I want, that probably is not going to be necessary. I find it to be very useful for the big targets, so maybe it is. I don't know once I get to end game and get buffed out. It may become just something not required. Vampiric Mag is something I actually was happy to find because my buddy is a bleed spec Geo bastard, and he runs around putting bleed everywhere, and that just helps me keep my mag rolling, especially in multiplayer. Those of you who do blighted rounds know that it can be frustrating to get the actual last hit, so adding one more thing, it was good for me. I think there's one for one of the other afflictions, but it's whatever. Toxic Lead is the one that is the primary refiller that you work with your blighted turret to make sure you always have ammo. And Captain Hunter is always good to just mow things down. Skills. Like I said, Tool destruction and blighted chart are pretty much required. You need to have toxic to keep ammo rolling. And pain launcher or shrapnel would be my suggestion. Whatever floats your boat. This is my build. I was not positive about rain freeze because I didn't realize it's toxic and freeze. I was a doofus. I didn't read that properly. This is fantastic. It is key. You can melee constantly for full health. It applies toxic, which allows you to cycle your mag to full. This is very, very good. Don't skimp on this. I like wipeout. You could maybe move this somewhere else if you wanted. Both adrenalizing antenna, which is your blighted turret, every 6 seconds. This is very good. Boosts your anomaly power. And then every time you pain launcher or shrapnel, you gain even more anomaly power. Shrapnel is obviously going to cycle it faster, so again, choices. I avoid the toxic ones because I find I get better stuff in other places. Resistance piercing for you standing up, for knocking them down. Your cooldowns to get your abilities out faster. Again, either shrapnel or pain launcher, whatever is your play style. I eyeballed this for a minute and then realized that I just don't need it. Like, it's nice. If you're running shrapnel, it's probably a even better consideration. It allows you to get that armor really high, and especially if you're running Fortress on your weapon, that could be quite a sizable increase in your damage. So it is an option. I just found that I don't need it to survive. I just don't. You're basically unkillable with just basic stuff. And this helps out against all the stuff that's going to pile up on you. This is one that maybe you could transfer to here if you wanted. However, I really like every time I shoot anything, I have massive health. And then if things get a little bit questionable, you are able to instantly go. And as far as I can tell, I'm not positive, but as far as I can tell, Skill Leech applies to your melee. So this increases your ability to one melee full heal yourself. It's very strange how melee works, but I do believe that it is in fact anomaly scaling. And that's it. I am side building an entire gear set for both a pure scrapnel, the mines, and also a blighted rounds. I hope when I'm peacefully farming 15s, I can compare all three. But I do believe that this build is the best for leveling. It keeps you alive, and as everyone knows, you cannot do damage while you're dead. Plus, if you're soloing, you can't finish the freaking mission while you're dead, which is deeply irritating. You won't die with this. Not unless you're stupid. And even if you're stupid, you probably won't die with this. So, enjoy your Immortal build, and I hope that helps someone. Thank you.